in this video, I'll be talking about the common reasons why Canada study permit get refused and what are some of the things that you can do to actually avoid these visa rejections. I mean, from the experiences of people that have applied and have been rejected, we know there are a lot of things that we can actually learn so we don't make that same mistake. Okay, one of the things that people don't do is really ask people, right? You were refused. What were the major reasons, and what did you do? Not everybody may be willing to share because of one reason or the other. So, if you have been refused Canada study permit application, if you've gotten the refusal, one of the first things you have to do before thinking about reapplying is to first get the GCMS note, okay? Because when you get your refusal letter, there are very common reasons that they will just give, maybe lack of finance and other things. They are not going to give all the details. It's going to fall under the umbrella of the common reasons. But when you apply for the GCMS note, it really tells you exactly what was wrong with your finances or what was wrong with your study plan. They just give you the plain answer. And then when you see that, you'll be able to know, okay, this is what I should do next. Some people have actually argued that, oh, I did a fantastic application, I want to do an appeal, Well, if you want to, you can go ahead, but for the most part, if you apply for GCMS note, you discover that there was actually something you didn't do right. So in this video, I will share with you, I've been opportune to see, some person's GCMS note, because in the process of just providing them some insight, and I've learned a lot of things just going through multiple GCMS notes. So in this video, I'll share some, anonymous GCMS notes with you, and then give you some suggestions on what you can do to avoid refusals, all right? And if you're applying for the first time, this is actually a perfect video for you, because you actually get to learn all the reasons why people get refused, and then what you should do in your own situation to actually, get approval the first time. So the common reasons for denial these days is basically, I would say 90% is based on funds. They would just say insufficient funds. And the second reason is going to be, the purpose of visit is inconsistent, more like, giving the details you provided with your stay. That is not very common, okay? Because at least I would say 90% of people apply for a course that's related to, what their current work experience is and that advance their career. I've talked about in multiple videos that you should apply for something, a course that you can defend. When you look at your current work experience, look at a course that will, at least help justify, future career and all that. If you do that, that first point of inconsistent purpose of visit and all that is going to be settled. So the other 90% now is going to be based on funds. So I actually have my notes here. So what I'm going to do, just read what are some of the reasons that I've seen in the past, okay? So you've applied and they will say, oh, I'm not satisfied that you will leave Canada at the end of your stay as required in paragraph whatever. I'm refusing your application because you have not established that you will leave Canada based on the following factors. Okay, so I'll list some of the factors to you. Another thing I want to mention is, people just worry themselves too much about home ties. So what am I going to show for home ties? Is that am I going to be denied visa because of home tie? Not necessarily. If you don't have home ties, not necessarily they'll just deny you completely. But if you can show that, oh, when I finish you don't even need to show like documents and all that, just explanation, okay? That when I get back home from Canada, this is what I'm going to do in my home country. If you can do that, that's already, the home tie is already settled, okay? You don't have to start, in providing the lands that you don't have or properties that you don't have. If you don't have it, you don't have it, you can think about a recent graduate. For us, you just finished your high school. What are you going to use as home tie? You can't say you don't have, if you don't have lands or any job, you can't do anything about it. Just talk about, when I get back, this is what exactly I'm going to do in my country. If you already have a job and you're applying for a master's, PhD, or diploma, a postgraduate diploma, you can talk about the current job that you're having. If they give you a study leave, then that's also perfect. Okay, so let's go back to the reason that they're not satisfied that you're going to leave Canada based on the following reasons. Number one that you will see is that your assets and the financial situation are insufficient to support the stated purpose of travel for yourself and any accompanying family member if applicable. So you can see, even though you apply a loan, sometimes they can still give any accompanying family member if possible, because it's more like a general reason. And then the second one is, pursuant to paragraph 220A of the IRPA, I'm not satisfied that you have sufficient and available financial resources without working in Canada to pay the tuition fees for the purpose of the program of studies that you intend to pursue. I'm going to expand all of these, what they mean and what you can do in later part of the video. And then the third part is going to be, I'm not satisfied that you have sufficient and available resources without working in Canada to maintain yourself and your family members who are accompanying you during your proposed period of study. That's why I said, even though you're applying for yourself alone, sometimes you must see this reason. So let's look at some GCMS notes and then see exactly what they actually stated. Like I said, these are anonymous, the name of the person is not included, so this is just for information purpose. Okay, let's look at two scenarios and look at two notes. So the first one says, I have considered the following factors in your decision. Applicant have provided a personal bank statement, and the statement shows that the transaction started from February of 2023, where there was a low balance, and then that actually increased to a balance of about 15 million in the month of May, and there were multiple large sum deposits, right? That applicant has also explained that these are gift deed, from his dad and brother, as well as a large sum from employer. The source of fund of those gift deeds are poorly documented, and that there is no evidence provided showing how these sponsors came to accumulate these large savings. And in the absence of satisfactory documentation showing the source of these funds, I'm not really satisfied that the applicant has sufficient funds for the intended international study. So based on the financial documents submitted, I'm not satisfied that the applicant has sufficient funds to pay the fees for the proposed study. And secondly, based on the financial documents submitted, I'm not satisfied that the applicant has sufficient funds to pay for living expenses for the proposed studies. Weighing on all of these applications, on all of these factors, I'm not satisfied that the applicant will depart Canada at the end of the period authorized for their stay. For this purpose, I've refused the application. So you can see that there was really nothing about home ties here. The overall summary is that the proof of funds were poorly documented, and there were not a lot of justifications to show the source of this fund. So this is case number one. So I'll talk about case number two and then give you some insight as to how to address some of these things. Now let's look at the second case. The second case says, I've reviewed the following factors I've considered the following factors in my decision. The applicant's asset and financial situation are insufficient to support the stated purpose of travel for the applicant and any other accompanying family members. Like this particular one was like a single person, but it's a general reason. The principal applicant's bank statement, it's supposed to be bank there, not Hank, so it's supposed to be bank. The initial balance shows a low sum that has increased to a large closing balance. Then there are multiple sums that were deposited over the short period noted. There were limited evidence, you see, something similar pertaining to the source of these funds. The significant change in bank balance tends to the point that the bank account was inflicted for the purpose of the visa application in order to meet financial establishment and sustainability for the first and subsequent years of studies. Have concern, these funds are for demonstration purposes only and are not reflective of the applicant's legitimate financial resources. So, in the absence of satisfactory documentation showing the source of these funds, I'm not satisfied that the applicant has sufficient funds for the intended purpose. Then, the bank statement provided for the financial sponsor's brother, the banking history, transaction history provided, the source of fund is poorly documented. You can see similar trend, poor documentation. There is no evidence there is no evidence provided showing how financial sponsor brother came to accumulate large savings. In the absence of satisfactory documentation showing the source of these funds, I'm not satisfied that the applicant has sufficient funds for the intended international study. Weighing the factors in this application, I'm not satisfied that the applicant will depart Canada at the end of the period authorized for their study. Now, let's really dissect, and I give you some ideas. Of course, one of the reasons that you can see here is that sometimes it's not really there is not enough money. At least for 90% of cases that I've seen, it's not that there is no money in the bank account. It's just that you are not providing enough evidence to justify the money in your account. Okay, now what are the very first thing is lump sum. Okay, you just put money, for those in Nigeria, you are putting maybe naira, subsequently, or those in Ghana cedis, or those in different part of the world, your local currency. You're just pumping money gradually into your account, and you're not even justifying where this money is coming from. Any lump sum money that you have, if you are employed, what do you really consider as a lump sum? Personally, it's not on their website, but personally, I would say any amount of money that is like twice of the monthly, maybe two, three times of the monthly salary that you receive, that is actually considered as a lump sum. Okay, so you have to find a way to justify where those money is coming from. If you can't justify it, it's going to be a problem. Okay, now those lump sum can be coming from, let's say, a brother or your sister or your father or your mother. So maybe they are giving you in form of like a gift deed. I'm just giving you this, certain amount of money to support your journey in Canada. Okay, fine, it's your brother, good. One of the things they have to do is that they have to write a letter of support. That letter of support really explains, details about what they do, why they are sponsoring you, why they are supporting, not necessarily sponsor, right? Why they are supporting you with this amount of money. And not just that, initially I wasn't really in talking about people should show, evidence of what anyone that is giving them gift deed should show. But these days, the visa officer said, no, I don't just want to see the gift deed amount in your account. Okay, I want to see whoever is giving you that amount, what are they doing? So if they are employed, what should you provide? You can provide their reference letter from the place where they are working. You can show their pay stubs. You don't have to show their bank account. Reference letter from where they are working and their pay stub is sufficient. If you don't have pay stub, at least a reference letter that shows at least how much you're earning annually. Okay, that's amazing. If they own a business, they can show maybe their business registrations, they can show their asset in the business, they can show maybe any kind of receipt or invoice that they are getting from the business to show exactly where they are getting money from. Okay, so this is one way to actually justify these funds. Another reason that you've actually seen there is small opening balance. Oh, you have an opening balance and then very little, and then by the time you print your bank statement, it's like over the roof. How come? How is that possible? You know, Canada would require you to print 4 to 6 months of bank statement, and it doesn't mean that you have to have the final amount of money and allow that money to stay for 4 months. That's not what they're interested in, okay? Because this money can gradually, increase over that 4 months period. If maybe your salary have started coming in, maybe the sponsor sent you some money, it's fine that the money increase gradually, okay? But my advice would be try to have all the required funds at least 2 to 3 weeks before you submit applications, your application, so that it will make sense that at least the money has been in the account for a little while before submitting the application. So I've already talked about gift deed. If anybody is giving you gift deed, henceforth tell or find a way to show how that person is the source of fund for that person. Okay, it's very important. Another thing is actually, if you are sure, maybe you sold something, that is okay. That, oh, you have a landed property that you've kept for some time, and now for the purpose of this visa application, you are selling this landed property, or you're selling your car, your house, I don't know, depends on you, whatever way you want to raise the funds. It's not just to show the gift, the land sale deed, and say, oh, I sold this amount for 15 million naira, or I sold this for $10,000 equivalent, okay? One of the things I will encourage you to put is, at least when you bought that land, you should have the documents to show, okay, I bought this land, and then this is the amount that I used to purchase this land, okay? So you have to now also prove yourself where you got those funds from that you used to buy that land. It might be your employment, right? Maybe you are your salary earner, and then you've been saving for a while. Those are some of the things you cannot explain that, I got this money from, my salary, right? I've saved over the months, over the years, as the case may be. And then if you have a business, you can say, oh, these are some of the proceeds from my business, and I invested it in the land. So you see that it all kind of ties down to how you justify. It's not just, I've seen some people just show bank account, and upload it in the proof of funds and say, oh, I have equivalent of $50,000 in my account, and I just show that, bam. If you don't justify, they don't care whether you have $1 billion in your account. Are you able to provide enough evidence to justify that? Okay, so make sure you justify, especially for that land sale or property sale. Things you should include: the sale agreement, and we're including the amount, and then you bought the land or the car, whatever, for social amount with your name, and then show your employment letter, your pay stubs, your own bank statement. And then I've already talked about, if you are having a business, these are some of the things that you can show. And then how do you arrange these things? Okay, there is no direct way to say this will come first, but I will advise you, it has to be arranged logically, okay, in a way that it makes sense to the visa officers, okay? And for my recommendation would be, in the first paragraph, or in the first place, if you can write more like a Word document to summarize the funds available, to say, oh, I have this fund in my local bank. This is the amount in local currency. This is the equivalent to Canadian dollars. I've paid this tuition deposit. This is the amount in Canadian dollars. My sponsor is supporting me, and then this is the amount in naira, in naira, in Ghana cedis, whatever local currency, and this is the equivalent. Okay, I forgot to mention, if you have someone that is sponsoring you, they don't have to send that money to your bank account, okay? Especially if it is a family member. In fact, I advise, if you're using any sponsor outside of your family member, you have to find a way to justify how you're related to that person, okay? Family members, father, brother, sister, maybe uncle and aunt. If you can show proof of relationship, that's fine. For parents, your birth certificate of your sibling birth certificate are a very good way to justify proof of relationship. Well, sometimes people have said, can I use an affidavit to prove? Well, well, if you can't do that, but I can't say if they will accept that now, because anybody can do an affidavit and say they are your uncle or your aunt. But I mean, that if that's what you have, you can give that a try and see if that works. If your sponsor is the one showing, if they have a personal, if they are employed, they have to show their employment letter, pay stub, their bank statement, and then many other supporting documents that shows their phone, maybe properties and other things. But you cannot use properties as primary source of fund. I've heard people say, oh, I have landed documents worth about 40,000 Canadian dollars equivalent. Can I just show that and say I have no more? They actually need you to show a bank statement that has that money. Sometimes people that can say, can I use an investment certificate? Well, if it's something you can easily have access to in terms of getting access to the investment without any much documentations, and that is fine. You have to explain what the investment is and how you can readily have access to the investment. That is fine. And if your sponsor have businesses as well, they can show their business registration, receipts of their business. They can also show the business assets that are available. If you can't do that, yeah, for sure you will be just fine. Okay, so these are some of the things that you can, in terms of arranging the documents. Like I said, you can have that first page where you justify this is the amount available, how much your sponsor is showing, if there's any, that would be funds available. And then in the next we'll talk about the expenses, which is going to be whatever tuition balance is left and your living expenses. If you're including your children as well, you can save cost of living for my children and cost of living for my spouse. Of course, for another person following you, yours is $10,000 plus tuition balance. That is what is required. I've already talked about how much is required in my other videos. You can check those out. For if you're including family member, $10,000 for yourself, $4,000 for the first family member, and then $3,000 for the subsequent family members. After that, the next thing is going to be your bank statement. If you're doing this my bank statement, where you send the bank statement directly to the embassy, then your bank will give you a one-page with a password. That is also fine. You can include that in your application. And then after that, the next thing is going to be something like maybe your employment reference letter, your pay stubs, if you have a business, maybe your business registration. Of importance is the receipts or invoices for your businesses. You have to also show that. Maybe you have a client that paid something equivalent to $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, or $500. Just put those receipts or invoices in that order. And then if you have any assets in your business, list the assets, list the worth, right, of those assets in your local currency, and also now in Canadian dollars. Okay, so that's about it. If you have done this, I just hope that you get an approval when you do your application next time. Remember, the watchword is justification. Enough documents to back up the funds that you have in your account as to the source of these funds. If you can do this, then you should be just good. So I know it was a long video, but thank you for sticking around till the very end. If you really got valuable information from this video, why don't you consider hitting that subscribe button so that whenever new videos are released, you will be the first person to get notified. And also, if you haven't liked this video, please do so. It's going to help the YouTube algorithm recommend this video to other people. And if you have any more comment or something I haven't addressed in this video, just leave the comment in the comment section, and then I will try to respond as soon as I can. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.